The Garden at Dusk, the first thing one noticed about Eleanor Whitcomb was not her beauty, though she possessed that in quiet abundance, but her stillness. She carried herself as though every movement had once been rehearsed and later forgotten, leaving only grace behind. Her hair, the shade of dark honey, was always neatly coiled at her nape, though wisps tended to escape in the evening air. Her eyes, pale green and unguarded, held a light that seemed to fade and rekindle depending on who spoke to her. At 25, Eleanor was already accustomed to being overlooked, a widow before she had truly been a wife, a daughter without fortune, and a woman too reserved for society's liking. It was said she spent too much time in the garden, and perhaps she did. The Whitcomb estate, though diminished, still possessed an expanse of grounds that glowed like emerald silk at dusk. Here, beneath the sprawling yews and tired roses, Eleanor walked each evening as the sun melted into gold, the world growing softer and lonelier with every step. The stranger among the roses. It was on one such evening, when the sky blushed violet and the crickets had begun their chorus, that Eleanor first saw the stranger. He stood by the fountain, that crumbling marble relic her late husband had despised, with one gloved hand trailing through the water as though reacquainting himself with something lost. His coat was of dark blue, finely cut yet travel-worn, and his hair, wane-tossed and copper-lit, caught the last of the dying light. "Forgive me," she said, clutching her shawl tighter. "This is private property." He turned at once, his expression unreadable, then smiled with a gentleness that was almost disarming. "Then I must beg your pardon, madam. I had thought this garden abandoned." "Abandoned?" Her tone softened despite herself. "Hardly. It is merely quiet." He nodded, glancing around as though the word had struck him. "Quiet," he echoed. "Yes, that is rare these days." When he introduced himself, Mr. Nathaniel Ashcombe, recently returned from the continent, she caught something in his voice, a faint accent worn thin by distance. There was a sadness in it, too, like the final note of a forgotten song. He claimed to have known her husband once, years before the war. Yet when Eleanor pressed for details, he spoke vaguely, too vaguely, as if his memories were both precious and perilous. An uneasy bloom. Over the weeks that followed, Mr. Ashcombe became a presence in her days as naturally as dusk itself. He would arrive just before twilight, never announcing his approach, and walk with her among the hedgerows. He spoke little of himself, but much of the world, of cities that glowed like embers and seas that smelled of iron and rain. His words wove color back into her faded evenings, and she found herself waiting for him in ways she refused to name. Yet the garden began to change. The roses, which had long withered to pale ghosts of their former bloom, began to flower again, not red, but deep crimson, almost black in low light. The air grew heavy with their scent, thick and heady, as though the earth itself were breathing differently. And then there were the whispers. At first, she thought them tricks of wind through ivy, but some nights, when the moon hung low, she could swear she heard her name carried softly through the leaves. Eleanor. When she mentioned it to Nathaniel, his eyes darkened. "You must not linger here after sundown," he said quietly. The garden remembers things best left forgotten. The confession at twilight. It was a stormlit evening when the truth revealed itself. Rain lashed the windows. The fountain overflowed with murky water. Eleanor found Nathaniel standing once more among the roses, bareheaded, soaked to the bone. "Why do you come here?" she demanded over the thunder. "Why haunt this place as if it holds some hold over you?" His eyes, once warm, gleamed with an otherworldly light. "Because it does," he whispered. "Because once, long ago, I buried something here I could not destroy." And before she could speak, he stepped closer. "I knew your husband, Eleanor. I fought beside him. And when he died, it was not of a wound made by man." Her heart stumbled. You mean he made a bargain," Nathaniel said, voice breaking. For wealth, for status, for the estate you walk upon. He offered the garden itself, a living sacrifice, to something that grows stronger with blood. I tried to stop him, but I failed. The wind howled, and lightning caught on the thorns, making them gleam like blades. Eleanor staggered back. And you? She whispered, what are you to it? I am its keeper, he said softly now. Bound to guard it and you until the debt is repaid, the garden's reckoning. As the storm reached its height, the earth trembled beneath their feet. The fountain cracked, spilling red-tinged water. The roses shuddered, their petals unfurling like open wounds. From the soil rose faint shapes, pale, half-formed, reaching toward Eleanor as though to claim her. Nathaniel seized her hand. Go! Leave this place! But she could not, for beneath the terror something called to her, a deep, aching pulse, ancient as the roots themselves. And in that moment she understood. She was not merely an heir to her husband's sin. She was part of the bargain. Tears mixed with the rain as she whispered, if the garden wants blood, it will have mine. Nathaniel's eyes widened. No, it must end with me. Before she could stop him, he pressed her hand to his chest. She felt the faint beat of his heart, and then, with a shuddering sigh, it stilled. The ground quieted. The crimson blooms faded to white. Epilogue. The Garden at Dusk. Years later, the villagers still speak of the Whitcomb garden. They say it grows wild now, beautiful but untamed. The fountain stands dry, yet on certain evenings, when the light softens, and the air smells of rain, a woman can be seen walking among the lily, her gown trailing dew, her face serene. Some claim she waits for the man who once kept the darkness at bay. Others whisper she has become part of the garden itself, guarding its peace as he once guarded her. And as the sun slips below the horizon, the air hums faintly, a heartbeat beneath the earth, as if dusk itself remembers their love.